Trouble coming up with ideas for your custom LEGO projects? Look no further than official sets for inspiration. Here you can learn clever building techniques, build a MOC to fit a specific theme, or, my favorite, transform an existing set into something completely new. Here are 5 essential tips you can use to turn a set like this into something like this. A while ago, I challenged myself to transform this little street sweeper into a custom mech to, sweep the streets clean of crime. While I still think it turned out pretty good, I definitely could have benefited from using these tips I learned. So, without further ado, number 1, plan ahead what the end product will be. This may seem obvious, but planning what you want to make ahead of time is actually a very important step, especially for this kind of project. There is something to be said for experimenting as you go along, of course, but in general, you're going to want to have a basic idea of what the end product will be as you begin building. I decided on a mech because I thought it would be the easiest way to integrate all of the different features from the street sweeper into something completely new. Speaking of which, you know how in the LEGO movie when all the citizens transform their buildings and vehicles into their own creations? They transformed a castle into a hovercraft, a fire truck into a mech, an ice cream truck into a hovercraft, a pirate ship into a mech, a plumbing truck into a hovercraft, a construction site into a mech, a garbage truck into a hovercraft, a saloon into a biplane, but we don't talk about that one, and a kebab stand into a hovercraft. Apparently, mechs and hovercrafts are your go-tos if you don't have any other ideas, but you can really be creative as you want to be for this. For example, LEGO sets generally consist of either vehicles and/or buildings, so try transforming a vehicle into a building, or vice versa. You can also take inspiration from those Creator 3-in-1 sets, which typically do a really great job of reusing the same pieces to build a very wide variety of subjects. And as the 3-in-1 sets show, there are a million different kinds of vehicles and buildings out there, so don't be ashamed of simply transforming one kind of building or vehicle into another. That's still quite a creative feat and can look just as impressive. Moving on to number 2, choose key elements that you want to preserve. All LEGO sets have at least a couple very apparent features that make them distinct from other sets. It could be a certain minifig accessory or logo, an action feature, or just a unique part that stands out among the rest. These are going to be your top priority when planning out the key elements of your transformation because they help tie your model directly back to the original set. While taking absolutely no inspiration from an official set is a good idea for other projects, that's not really the point of transforming something. You want to have at least some semblance of the old so the new actually looks like a transformation rather than something entirely different. A big part of this is number 3, color scheme. A great place to start when picking out certain elements from the original set that you want to transform is sticking with the color scheme from the original set. You may have never noticed this before, but most LEGO sets tend to have 2 very defined main colors, be it the walls and roof of a building, the base and accents of a vehicle, or the fur and other fur of an animal. These 2 colors are your bread and butter to feature in your transformation. And just like the original sets, they should be lightly supplemented by pops of supporting colors. As official sets demonstrate, there's already a lot you can do with just the 2 colors, so don't go overboard with this, or your transformation might seem a bit noisy. Number 4, find pieces from other sets that match the theme. Obviously, I didn't just use the pieces from this set to make this mech. While this can be a wonderful challenge to try, by no means should you feel limited to only using the pieces from a set while building your transformation. LEGO loves to put some odd colors into the middle of their sets because you never actually see them. It makes instructions much easier to follow, and it gives you a wider variety of parts. The problem with this variety is that it often clashes horribly with the color scheme you just picked out in step 3, and now you're left with a bunch of pieces you can't even use on the outside of your build. With as small a set as this already was, that didn't leave me with very much to work with. So I opened myself up to my entire collection, and I'm very glad I did. It allowed me to make this transformation so much larger and more detailed than it otherwise would have been, and as this tip suggests, for me to choose pieces that fit really well with the theme and shape I was going for. Pieces with the same logo or color scheme are shoo-ins for this one, but generally you just want to find pieces that make your transformation possible. The pieces that are the glue that holds all those different elements from earlier into one cohesive structure. Finally, step 5. Assess what sacrifices have to be made. Since no one has unlimited pieces or time, this really applies for all LEGO MOCs, but it's especially a huge problem when it comes to transformations. I was trying to carefully balance so many aspects that some things just had to go. The biggest balancing acts I had to make sacrifices for are in regards to 4 parts: functionality, detail, support, and size. With LEGO, it can be difficult to cram much detail or functionality at all into small spaces, but then you run the risk of making something too big, as bigger certainly isn't always better. Then of course, as the backbone of it all, you want your models to be structurally sound. At least somewhat, which can be difficult to do when balancing everything else. For instance, I really wanted the set's trash can to be the pelvis of the mech, but with how the piece is made, it was virtually impossible to support the model's weight this way. Even then, it still isn't the most structurally sound thing in the world, as I sacrificed a bit of support for this functionality. Sacrifices always have to be made, which is just the reality of what you're gonna have to do if you want to have a decent balance of all of these aspects. Speaking of balance, my little mech here is gonna project a little statistic up on the screen for you there. I'll let you do what you want with that one, but just remember, try to keep things perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Anyways, I hope this video has been helpful or inspiring for those of you who want to transform your own sets. If you do give this process a try, definitely let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences or give more pointers if need be. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching, we'll see you next time, and don't forget to recycle.